So the next concept to understand when going solar is how to size a system. As we've discussed in the previous two videos of the concepts of understanding power and energy, and also the concepts of solar resource and the production factor, this is essentially a continuation of that understanding. How to size a system. In the solar resource and production factor video, we covered the fact that generally in most places, in an average place in the mainland US, the solar resource is about 1,500 kilowatt hours per kilowatt in an average sunny and average latitude location. How to size a system is, you basically do the math in reverse. So let's say it's an average home that consumes about 10,000 kilowatt hours of energy per year. You basically divide that into that 1,500 production factor that we discussed in the previous video. Of course, depending on where you are, that production factor might be higher than 1,500. In a place like San Diego, it could be closer to 1,600 or 1,650 in certain locations. Actually, if you go to Hawaii, it gets even closer to 1,800. But if you go to Maine or if you go to Seattle, it'll be closer to 1,300. So you basically take the total annual consumption of a house in kilowatt hours and divide that into that production factor number. Let's call it 1,500 for this example. So if it is a 10,000 kilowatt hour annual consumption home, and you want to offset that entire consumption and get net metering credit for it, then you design a 6.6 kilowatt system to generate almost exactly 10,000 kilowatt hours. And that is generally the way they size a system. But this math assumes that the solar panel is placed perfectly in a sunny location. And also ideally, if it is in the US, facing slightly south. So you want to place these panels on your south-facing face of your roof rather than north-facing or east or west-facing. North-facing will have a major loss in production because that side of the roof does not get direct sunlight, generally speaking. Another option might be to place the panels east-west, and in those cases, those panels will get really good production in the morning on the east side and really good production on the west side in the evening. But the rest of the day, because the sun is not shining so directly onto that other surface, and depending on the angle, you usually want these angles to be around 20, maximum 30 degree angles. You're going to have some production losses on usually a difference between a pure south-facing installation versus the east face is probably 10 to 20% loss. But there could be, there are also unique cases where if the angles of those east and west are low and on a flat roof, for example, that can create some space advantages, and that might become advantageous on big, large commercial installations, but that's outside of our topic for now. So generally, you want the panels facing south. And if it is not south, east, west, or if it is in a really shady place, like under a tree, or one corner of the system is going to get some extra shading in the afternoons because of a certain tree or another building, those things will obviously affect your production negatively. And there are some amazing software tools in the market that are capable of calculating what the shading losses would be. Tools like Aurora Solar's design tool, Helioscope, and a slew of others essentially have the capability to calculate more accurately what your exact solar production factor is, and your installer generally will be using these tools if they want to accurately predict that. you got to also sometimes take into account the additional loads that you're going to add to your home. So for example, if you're going to add a pool or a hot tub, or if you're going to add EV chargers for your future EV cars, these should be some considerations. Generally, for an average American home, adding an EV charger means upsizing the solar system by another 10 to 15%. 2 cars might be 20% or even 30%. Again, these are just assuming average consumption, average size home, and so forth.